This episode of The Deep Dive is brought to you by Mindful Moments. Nourish your mind on the go. A series of AI-narrated meditations designed to feed your intellect and challenge conventional wisdom.
Yes.
Each bite-sized episode is packed with thought-provoking ideas, surprising facts, and insightful analysis, all designed to spark your curiosity and expand your understanding of the world. We always hear about those overnight success stories. You know the ones. An app that suddenly explodes in popularity, or that artist who skyrockets to fame with their very first hit.
Sure.
But is that really the whole picture, or is it more like a shortcut, a misleading one?
Right.
Let's take a quick trip back in time to September 2019. Picture Elon Musk down in Texas, standing next to the Star Hopper,
Oh, yeah.
this massive steel structure. I think someone even called it like a Mad Max movie prop. And he's there talking about sending humans to Mars.
Yeah.
Like it's just another day at the office.
Yeah, you've got that grand vision right alongside the very real, the messy beginning stages. I mean, just weeks before all that Starhopper nearly crashed during a test flight.
Oh, wow.
It was only saved because the FAA had those altitude restrictions. Even then, it had a really rough landing, even messed up the concrete. This constant push against limits the tension between shooting for the stars, but also having to take things step by step.
Hi.
It's a familiar story, I think, in any field that's truly trying to break new ground.
Absolutely. And really puts things in perspective when you think about where SpaceX was just a little while before Starhopper's little hop. Rewind back to the summer of 2003. Mars was making its closest approach to Earth in like 60,000 years.
Wow.
A super rare event, right? And at that exact same time, SpaceX was just getting started, like literally cutting the first pieces of metal for their first rocket. The thing about getting to Mars is it wasn't just about overcoming technical challenges. It was also, and maybe even more importantly, about putting together the right team.
Yeah, and that actually connects to a bigger point here. Even the most outside-the-box ideas need a solid foundation of talent and pure commitment. Musk knew that if he wanted to achieve these huge goals, he had to find people who weren't just super skilled, but who were also ready to jump into a journey that was going to be incredibly challenging and with a lot of uncertainty.
Totally. It makes you think about what drives people to embrace risk. Like, take Brian Bieldy, for example. Back in 2003, he had what many would consider like the perfect setup. Steady job as an aerospace engineer at NASA's JPL. NASA was even paying for his grad school. He had free housing because he was a fraternity advisor and an active social life. Things were good. But then he goes and visits this brand new SpaceX headquarters in El Segundo.
And his first impression of SpaceX wasn't exactly, glamorous. He talked about like a modest office, some basic cubicles, and a mostly empty factory floor, a far cry from the polished image of, a big aerospace giant.
For sure. He was facing a real choice. Stick with the security and the prestige of a government job, or dive headfirst into the high-pressure, unpredictable world of a startup where success was anything but guaranteed. And remember, this is 2003. No private company had ever reached Earth orbit. The odds were stacked against them.
What's so interesting here is Musk's ability to articulate a vision of the future that was compelling and inspiring. He told Biel that he believed space travel to Mars would become affordable within their lifetimes. That kind of optimism, that belief in the impossible, can be a really powerful motivator for people.
Absolutely. But it wasn't just Musk's vision that won Biel over. Another key player was Kasuf, who really went to bat for him at a crucial moment. SpaceX needed someone to develop the electronics for the rocket's core systems, but Biel didn't have formal training as an electronics engineer.
This shows how important it is to look beyond the usual qualifications. Kasuf pushed for Bielde based on his work ethic and his passion for solving problems, qualities he'd seen firsthand when they were both at USC. He was putting his own reputation on the line for Bielde.
And it paid off. August 2003, Brian Bielde became SpaceX's 14th employee. Around the same time, Musk himself had a bit of a surprising realization about Mars. He'd always been into space, but he just assumed that NASA, with all its history with Apollo, was actively working on sending people to Mars.
Yeah, it's interesting to think about how even with those past successes, progress isn't always a sure thing. Musk was pretty surprised when he couldn't find any solid plans for manned missions to Mars on NASA's website. This disconnect between what he expected and the reality seems to have been a turning point for his own space ambitions.
It definitely seems that way. This spurred Musk to get involved in private space projects like the Planetary Society's Solar Sail and the XPI's Foundation, which is all about encouraging private suborbital spaceflight. And he didn't stop there. Musk even came up with his own early private space plan called Mars Oasis.
It really shows his proactive approach. The whole idea behind Mars Oasis was to create a mini biosphere and launch it to Mars to get people excited about Mars exploration and maybe even nudge big players like NASA to think bigger.
Right. Then there was this pivotal meeting in spring 2002 at a hotel near the LA airport. Musk gathered around 15 to 20 top aerospace engineers. Many of them were invited by Mike Griffin, who would later go on to head NASA. We're talking a room full of leading experts in the field.
And their reaction when Musk announced he was starting his own rocket company, less than enthusiastic to say the least. There was laughter, some dismissive comments, definitely a lot of skepticism coming from the established aerospace community. It shows just how difficult it is to try to shake things up in an industry that's been around for so long.
Yeah. Despite that not-so-warm welcome, Space Exploration Technologies, or SpaceX as it would soon be known, was officially founded on May 6, 2002. At first, they called it SEDT, and even the name of their first rocket, the Falcon 1, has an interesting story behind it.
The name Falcon 1 is interesting because it was inspired by two things. You've got the iconic Millennium Falcon from Star Wars, which reflects Musk's interest in pop culture and this idea of aiming for something extraordinary. Then there's the fact that the rocket was designed with a single main engine. Mueller, as VP of Propulsion, had the big task of developing that engine from the ground up. Thompson, the VP of Structures, was responsible for the rocket structure, making it strong but lightweight. This early focus on key personnel and technology laid the groundwork for everything that came after. There are actually some really insightful analyses of ambitious projects like this on YouTube. Like a channel called Mindful Moments uses AI to break down audiobooks and offers a really unique perspective.
So here you have this incredibly ambitious vision, a small team of super-driven people, and the monumental challenge of building a rocket from scratch in an industry dominated by giants. It's a story of unwavering dedication in the face of doubt and obstacles. It makes you wonder what other seemingly impossible things could we achieve if we had that same mix of bold vision and relentless commitment.
That's a great question. The early days of SpaceX show us that breakthroughs rarely happen in a straight line. They often come from a combination of audacious goals, the right people willing to take big risks, and the determination to overcome setbacks.
So this deep dive into the beginnings of SpaceX has got you curious. Make sure to subscribe to the deep dive for more insightful explorations. Share this with anyone who loves stories about ambition and innovation. And if you want to go even deeper, you can buy Liftoff, the book we used for this deep dive, through the link in the show notes. But most importantly, keep thinking critically about the things that are shaping our future.